Today we're going to be taking a look at the Win 4 7640U and we're going to compare it with its predecessor, the Win 4 6800, as well as a special guest, the ONEXFLY with its Ryzen 7 7840U. The 7640U sits in a bit of an awkward place between the 7840U from this year and the 6800U from last year. So today we're going to compare the two Win 4 devices that I have here as well as the ONEXFLY to see where exactly the 7640U falls. Many people assume that the 7640U is pretty well the 6800 but just rebundled for this year. And taking a look at the results, it's very similar, but it's not exactly the same. Before we get started though, a special thank you to Geek Buying for actually providing both of these devices, the 6800 a few months ago and the 7640U just recently. Later on in the video, I'll show you their website, and if you're interested in the 7640U Win 4, it's a great place to pick one up. Alright, and without any more delay, let's dive into it. We'll start off by taking a look at the specs. So the Win 4 7640 has the AMD Ryzen 5 7640U APU with a 760M iGPU. For memory, it has 16GB of LPDDR5X RAM at 7500 megatransfers per second. The display is a 6-inch 1920 by 1080p IPS display. It has a 16:9 aspect ratio and it has the option for 40 or 60 Hz. For storage, it has a PCIe Gen 4 NVMe M2 that's a 2280 size. And you can purchase with 512GB all the way up to 4TB. For connectivity, it has Wi-Fi 6 and Bluetooth 5.2. We also have a fingerprint sensor to sign into Windows and also a finger trackpad. For I/O, we have two USB-C ports. One is USB-C 4 and the other one is USB-C 3.2 Gen 2. We also have an Oculink port, a 3.5mm headphone jack, as well as a micro SD card reader. For the size of the device, it's 28 by 220 by 92 millimeters, and it weighs 598 grams. On to some controller features. There's 6-axis gyro controls, we have ALPS joysticks, we have rear buttons, the OS that ships with the device is Windows 11 Home Edition, and there's also some TDP software called Motion Assistant that is pre-installed. I'll briefly cover some of the main specs for some of the devices that we're going to be comparing to. This is going to be mostly things that are different. I'll be comparing with the previous Win 4, so that has a Ryzen 7 6800U. The memory is 16GB of LPDDR5 RAM at 6400 megatransfers per second, and we have a USB-A port in place of the Oculink. The second device that we're going to compare with in this video is the ONEXFLY, and that has a Ryzen 7 7840U. We have 32GB of LPDDR5X RAM at 7500 megatransfers per second, and that's probably all that you need to know for those two devices. If you'd like to learn more though, I did review both of them, so check the links in the video description if you're interested. Now we'll take a look at the performance of the 7640U versus some of the other devices. I have it running 23.11.1 for its AMD drivers. One thing to note, to make sure that the tests were as accurate as possible, I did run every test 3 times, and what you're seeing is the results of the averages. All tests are run at 15 watt and 30 watt. So for 15 watt time SPI, we have the ONEXFLY at 2464, and then the 7640U and 6800U are pretty well neck and neck. When we get to 30 watts, there is a bit of a jump here. The 6800U seems to be outperforming the 7640U in this one, and of course the ONEXFLY has quite the lead. Moving over to Geekbench 6 for the GPU score at 15 watt, we actually have the Win 4 6800U in the lead, with the ONEXFLY just behind and the 7640U quite behind. And then looking at the CPU results, also at 15 watt, we have the 7640U in the lead, so it's quite strange the results here. Now at 30 watt for the GPU score, the 6800U Win 4 has quite the lead. Both other chips are lagging quite a bit behind here. And then once again for the CPU score, we see the same thing that we saw at 15 watts, which is the 7640U in the lead. And now on to the game test. First we have Forza Horizon 5 at 15 watts. And at 15 watts, they all seem to be performing pretty well the same, which is very surprising. I expected that the 7840U would have had quite the jump here. And then moving over to 30 watts, we see pretty well the same results here. All of the devices are pretty much neck and neck. If you look at the averages, the difference is a total of 1.1 frame per second from the highest to the lowest. So we have the same results in Forza Horizon 5, but let's check out Forza Motorsport, and here you can see that it's changed quite a bit. At 15 watt, we have quite the advantage for the ONEXFLY, followed by the 7640U a little bit behind. And here we see the 6800U start to lag behind. So let's check out 30 watts, and you can see that the results are pretty well the same. And just a reminder that all devices are up to date with their AMD drivers up to the time of recording. So for Forza Motorsport, definitely want the 7840U or the 7640U. Switching over to Starfield, we have much more stability with the ONEXFLY, their 1% lows are higher, and we have a higher average frame rate, although it's not by a dramatic amount. And once we move over to 30 watt, you can see that the stability of the 6800U is very poor here. I actually ran this one more than 3 times just to verify, but yes, those minimums and those 1% lows of the 6800U are actually that bad. Checking out Cyberpunk at 15 watt, we have the 7840U in the lead here, the 7640U slightly behind. The 7640U seems to have an even gap between the two devices. Moving over to 30 watt, we see the gap for the ONEXFLY expand quite a bit, although the 7640U still has a respectable lead on the 6800. All around though, they all seem to be performing fairly stable with Cyberpunk. Moving over to God of War, we have pretty well the same performance as far as the averages go between the 6800U and the 7640U. Although once again, we are seeing more stability out of the 7640U if we look at the 1% lows and the minimums. And that's something that was consistent at 15 watt and at 30 watts. So far the trend that I'm seeing is that the 7640U just seems a little bit more stable than the 6800. And now looking at Shadow of the Tomb Raider, it seems to be very similar performance between the 6800U and the 7640U, with the ONEXFLY pulling ahead in each of the categories by just a little bit. And then at 30 watt, it seems to stabilize. The gap between the devices seems to get a little bit less, but we do have the 6800U pull ahead of the 7640U. Overall though, all three perform fairly similar for Shadow of the Tomb Raider. So after taking a look at the results, it seems to be that the 6800U is usually lagging a little bit behind the 7640U, and in some instances the averages are very similar, but the 6800U doesn't seem to be as stable. And then of course the ONEXFLY with the 7840U seems to be ahead in pretty well every category. So although not dramatic, there is a gap between the 7840U and the 7640U. Now we'll do a quick overview of the device. So the face buttons are similar to the size of a PS Vita. The joysticks do feel fairly tight. On the bottom right corner, we have an Xbox button. We've also got back and start on the bottom left and right. The left rear button turns on the snipping tool, and the rear button on the right, I'm not sure what the default command is. Below the D-pad on the left side, we have a fingerprint sensor, which is good for signing into Windows, and then underneath the joystick on the right, we have a finger trackpad. On the left side of the device, we have our micro SD slot, as well as a toggle for mouse mode and gamepad mode. Once you've toggled on mouse mode, the right joystick becomes your cursor, and you can left click with the L1 button and right click with the R1 button. On the right hand side, there's a reset pin, so if you mess up your BIOS, you just need to press that to reset it. Looking at the device from the top, you can see that it's actually pretty thick. It's actually the thickest device that I have. This is largely due to the slide up screen that has the keyboard underneath. Speaking of the slide up screen and keyboard, when you slide up the screen, there's a physical keyboard underneath that you can actually physically press the buttons in. This is different than the Win 3 that just had a touch keyboard. And looking at the back of the screen, you can see the rail system that the screen slides on. It does seem fairly sturdy, but it's something that I would definitely pay attention to make sure you don't damage it. And now we'll do a quick summary of what I like about the device and maybe some things that can be improved. The 7640U seems to be an improvement over the 6800U. In some tests, you could see that they were very close, while in others, the 1% lows and the minimum frame rate was more stable. It wasn't a massive improvement, but there is some noticeable gains in certain games like Forza Motorsport, for example, where we saw like a 10 frame advantage. I do think that having the additional Oculink port is nice if you plan to buy an eGPU. If you don't, then it probably doesn't matter to you. A couple of things that I really like about the device is I like having that small finger trackpad. I do find myself using it quite often. Having a fingerprint reader is also convenient for logging in. And honestly, having that little physical keyboard under the screen is something that's super handy. I did find myself using it more than I actually expected. And lastly, I really do like the look of this device. I'm a big fan of the PS Vita, so having a device that looks kind of similar was a bit of a no-brainer for me. Some of the things that could be improved or that I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of is that the 7640U is overshadowed by the 7840U. However, I do believe there is a spot for this device. I think having a more budget-friendly option is good. Although the 7840U does outperform the 7640U, it's not by a super massive amount, so it is still playable if you're wanting to play AAA games. Another thing that would be nice is to have Hall effect joysticks. That is something that I think could have been a good addition. And another thing to note that I didn't mention in the review is that the joystick caps, like the rubber piece, can sometimes wear down. I've seen this reported a little bit in the community, as well as know a guy that this actually happened to his device, so just keep that in mind that the joystick rubber is probably not the most durable. So I would recommend putting like a joystick grip on top just to make sure that you don't wear it down, or at least to give a better chance that it won't happen. Now that I've shared my thoughts on this device, let's go over how to apply the coupons and what the current discount is. It may change in the future, so I will update the links as that happens. For now though, check the video description or the pinned comment to get the most current links and the discount code. Now I'll actually show you how to purchase the devices from Geek Buying and how to apply the coupon, because it does have to go at checkout. So after you click on the Win 4 link, this is the page you'll be brought to. So basically you just need to pick your region. So we're going to go with the US for now, and we're going to add to cart. And then I'm going to go ahead and proceed to checkout. It's likely going to ask you for your address and different information, but for this purpose, I'm just going to skip past that and apply the coupon. So I have the code here, so you can find that in the video description or the pinned comment. And once you apply the coupon, you can see that it takes off $60. So now the price is $7.19 and there's free shipping. If you were looking at getting the ONEXFLY, I do have a coupon for that as well. So we're going to go ahead and pick the 1 terabyte. There is also a coupon for 2 terabytes, but we'll just do the 1 terabyte for the example. So I'm going to click buy now, and we're going to leave the address for now, but you will need to set this up when you're actually purchasing. And let's apply the code here. So once we input the code and press apply, you can see that the price will drop to $9.29 with free shipping as well. So you're saving about $70. These coupons may change at a later date, so stay tuned or check the video description to see if there's any updates. Usually the price will go down with time, so just make sure to check back if this is something that you're interested in. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I've been curious about the 7640U for some time now, so having the opportunity to test it out was a lot of fun. So thanks once again to Geek Buying for this opportunity, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.